Good morning, everybody. Happy Kwaai Day, Friday, June 28th. This is the 48th weekly public meeting of Kwaai. Welcome. Welcome. I'm going to go a bit long on the opening remarks on the Kwaai update because we're at the end of the quarter. This is the last meeting of Q2. And so we would normally I just have a brief update, and then I'd normally pass over to Debbie and she'd MC the rest of the schedule. Debbie's busy today, so you've got me, and I'm gonna be sort of doing the switching and so on. And we've got a lovely speaker. Our guest speaker today for the lightning talk is dall-e, and I see Sol's just joined. Welcome. After my little intro, Sol, I'm then going to hand over to you. And but in the meantime, I'm going to give you rights to present, but just wait till I hand over to you. So I'm going to add you as co-host. There we go. Okay, so that's all the logistics out of the way. Let me tell you, this is the 48th meeting of Kwaai, and end of Q2. We started the organization in the middle of July last year. So we're also coming up for our anniversary. So this is great. And, we typically have a weekly meeting. I think there were two meetings that we dropped, I think at Christmas, and I can't recall at New Year. There were two meetings we dropped. So 50 in a year is not bad. Let's talk about the growth of the organization. What I would normally do is show you the graph, and then we'd reflect on that a bit, and what the growth of the organization is. So let me share. This was last month's assessment that I gave you. This is the movement growth, the blue line, and we were at 430 or so at the end of May. We're now at the end of June, end of the quarter. We're actually at 522. So imagine a data point up here somewhere. Okay, so this is a great curve because it's following a sort of a quadratic line. For the nerds in there, the R squared factor is close to 1, which means it's following a quadratic line. So we are doubling roughly every quarter. I think that, so we're on track for that. This is a great sign. Our target for the end of this year was to get to 1,000 members. I think we'll easily achieve that. Okay, so as the movement grows, it becomes more complex to manage. And the back office admin just becomes more than a single person can do. And we started off with very manual processes. People would fill in the form, and then that would populate an Excel spreadsheet. It was a Google form in those days. Now we've got Salesforce up and running, and we've also got a Salesforce, a back office team. I'm so grateful for Eunice and for Suniti. If you're on the call, shout out to you for automating our back office. This is really great. And finding missing members. There were 43 missing members that had signed up and were not in our record. So boom. Okay. So we are at 522 as of today. There's still a few days left in the quarter, but I think that's a great number. I'd kind of been hoping we'd reach 500, and there we are. We're well over 500. And so, what does it mean for a movement like us to be growing? When you compare us to other movements that are open source developments that are influential in the industry, well, size matters, but also delivering value matters. And so, when you look at our GitHub repo and you look at the amount of code contribution, and in fact we've got several repos, but so look at the code contribution, look at who's using the code, and that's how we express our value. But as we grow, we start encountering other organizations that have got a very similar agenda, or maybe a similar broad goal, the broad goal of democratizing AI, but they're going about it in different ways. And so in some areas, you'll find they have strengths where where that's not our focus. And there's an opportunity maybe to flirt with these organizations and establish partnerships or even merge. And so as we look at the second half of the year, we're looking at growth. We're looking at what would it take for an organization to become a credible opposition to the monopolizing forces, a voice to be reckoned with, and one where enterprises will want to get a seat at the table as well. Of course, we're going to have to do that very carefully so that we're not subject to undue influence. But this is a natural progression of a movement like this. I've seen it in other movements. The FIDO movement that I was part of had a 10-year arc where they started off being very technical discussion groups like us. But what birthed out of that was WebAuthn and passkeys. And eventually the big players, Apple, Google, Microsoft, came to the table and adopted the specifications that were being developed in FIDO. So look, there are lots of organizations that have got a similar trajectory to ours, and we can learn from them and how they managed their back office, how they manage their strategy and their governance and so on. These aren't things that we need, the wheels that we need to reinvent. There's some very good examples. There are also some very bad examples, and I don't need to call them out. Examples of organizations that started off as non-profits and utterly betrayed their initial promises. So let's not follow those bad examples. Let's follow the good examples. Okay, at the risk of getting too ranty, and in fact I have become, normally, I'd get an IM from Debbie saying, okay, let's move on with the agenda. Let's move on with the agenda. Let me introduce our speaker, Sol Lee from dall-e, and let's just make that big. And Sol, we're so glad to have you. I wasn't sure whether you were going to make it or not, and I'm glad that we communicated on LinkedIn during the week, and so glad to have you here. So feel free to share your screen and tell us about yourself and what brings you to Kwaai.
Sure. Thank you so much for the introduction. I just have to say, before I begin, it's a little bit awkward, but I think it's more funny. This is actually not a picture of me. And so I'm very curious to know where you got it.
I apologize.
I look like this, but I'll share my screen.
Okay, we are going to remove that. Okay.
It looks like you, though.
We can create an avatar of you.
No problem. So I can do that, but if I say something wrong, we can say
yeah, okay. So we've created an avatar of you instead.
Okay, wait.
Stop messing. I will there we go.
Okay,
I'll stop sharing and you've got it.
Thank you. I'll start sharing. That's one way to get everyone's attention. So I hope that was part of the plan. I'll start with my LinkedIn and then get into some demos that I can show you that I'll hope you'll find all very interesting. So I am Sol. Hello, thank you for having me again. I am a product manager at a company called dall-e. We are an AI plus human assistant startup. But before becoming a software developer at this company, I was at several AI companies before, and I was at an accelerator some of you may be familiar with called Techstars, where I was working with healthcare-related AI startups. So this was, in 2018, like way before ChatGPT and all the new kind of consumer tools that people are familiar with today. So we were doing a lot of manual, like natural language processing and work to tag data and manage data, all within the framework that would be HIPAA compliant and that is promoting, consumer ownership of their own health data. So several AI startups later, where I am now is an interesting place because a company that I am now called dall-e, we actually started a few years ago as a purely human assistant service. So people like, maybe perhaps some of you, many execs, C-suite executives would come to us and we'd operate like an agency where we would connect, you would remote executive assistants to help you manage your calendar and all of these things. And if you've been, plugged into the news, you may have heard a lot recently that some of these admin work that lots of people are doing today are being pushed to be automated by AI. So what we are doing now is finding a way to see if there are niches of work that people do today, human assistants, that can be made better by working with AI rather than replace the work that people do entirely with AI, which lots of people are working on as well. So this sort of intersection of human and AI work is kind of like the unique space that we operated in. And we get a lot of interest from, VCs, like industry professionals and academics as well, on whether they can sort of have access to the data that we have proprietary, that's mostly on kind of how people are delegating work to each other so that it can be performed efficiently. And this is something that, if you have tried working with ChatGPT or other AI tools, open source tools, many people struggle with delegation. And it may come as no surprise to some of you that folks that are good at working with AI tools are in fact better at working with other people as well. And that is because the way that we communicate to a computer is not so different from trying to get somebody else to understand like what we mean, how we want certain types of work done. So many of you here are working at the policy level and thinking long-term about AI, the future of open source AI, how can we own our own data and things like that, which is super, super exciting. So I'm hoping that I can show you something today that gives more of a window into what are developers building today and what are some of the more like market tested products that are working now as opposed to like a few years from now, and some of the challenges and expectations associated with building an AI product today. So that's what I will demo for you. Some of the things that I had here that I touched on already. Again, so our thesis is more about how can we build products that are accessible to the average person, not just AI enthusiasts or scientists, that can make the most of humans and AI, as opposed to having AI replace the work that humans do. So it's sort of this transitional thesis. So to show you, before we get into more of the technical and academic aspects of it, I'll show you kind of the user experience of what we have in beta first, so that you can start to think about what might have gone into building a product like this. So we have a little landing page here, and I would love to actually take a volunteer from the audience. So my prompt is, let's say, think of all the things that you're hearing lately that people are selling you, like AI can do this for you, AI can do that for you. There may be things that you have on your to-do list that's moved from week to week to week and you still haven't been able to do it. And it would be great maybe if you could find another person and perhaps an assistant to do it for you. So we'd love to see if you could comment in here. I see the chat. So
hey, Myra's got her hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Myra. Do you have an example of something you would actually like to try delegating?
Yes, but I think there's already AI for this, note-taking.
Got it. That is a great example. I will have to ask you for perhaps another example, just so that we can land on an example where I think this demo can be.
Answering my emails.
Answering my emails. Also another thing both AI and humans can do today. Okay, let me give you some, sorry, maybe that was a bad starting from. Let me give you a few examples of things that we're able to handle today here, because this is like a subsection of our product that's in beta. So examples would be, writing an application for an NSF grant we're getting, update my animal feeding schedule without me checking in frequently. Any other examples? I'm just toggling on my screen here. Okay. Let's think of some things that perhaps
Upload recordings to
Mhm.
YouTube.
Upload recordings to YouTube.
Um,
These are great examples. Let's try to think of something where
Okay, well,
Okay,
how about my car insurance randomly went up, and I've been wanting to see what else is out there, but I hate signing up on any of those, give me a quote websites, because I am inundated with junk when I do that. So that's something I've been thinking of doing.
okay, thank you. Let's try that out. So if you can all see here, this is what I'm gonna do. So Myra, you said
Car
you're
insurance.
find me a better car insurance option. All right, let's try that out. And you see what happens here. Find me a better car insurance option. So we're generating some things here. What type of car do you own? What are the
Jeep.
insurance?
I thought you were asking me those questions.
Yes. Would you mind answering this so we can kind of see how this progresses?
It's a Jeep Wrangler.
nice.
Yeah, that was my husband going through his midlife crisis.
I didn't take you for a Jeep Wrangler, girl. I had a Jeep
Well,
Wrangler
I
once.
know, but that's my husband who's going through a midlife crisis, I guess.
Yeah, I had one 20 years ago. Now you're making me feel really old.
Oh,
That was
we have Progressive. Well, lower cost because it went up.
Okay.
Myra,
And you-
can we add, and sorry, Saul, can we add to this quality of service? Because lower cost may mean worse service, right, Myra? Would that be-
Yes. Because I don't want to get with a company that's like some just, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Specific companies you want to prefer or avoid? We don't have to answer all of these.
No.
But other notes? Okay. Yes, Jeeps are great for ski trips. Do you have any coming up soon? So, okay. So before I move on, I just wanted to explain something here that you probably already intuited for yourselves. Asking some follow-up questions here. We are kind of taking this approach where anytime you have a request, we have our AI trained to ask very relevant follow-up questions that another person might ask so that we can gather more details and make sure your request is captured. So let's see what happens if we go next. We are building a brief. I'm going to explain for you here. So I'm going to exit out of that. So let's see what we have here. So AI has built a brief for your request, Myra, based on the specifications and the preferences that we just noted. So we're saying, okay, the objective of this task is to find a more affordable car insurance option for a Jeep Wrangler that maintains the quality of service.
Yep.
What is your desired outcome? Provide a list of at least 3 different insurance options that offer lower costs without compromising on the service quality. Include details like pricing, coverage, customer reviews, and contact information. Now, this is something you may find interesting. This is something AI is very good at. It's writing out instructions for another person to be able to execute a task like this on your behalf. So first, research and list how many insurance provider options that offer policies for this car. Compare the cost and coverage options, check customer reviews to make sure they have a good rating, gather all the contact information, summarize the findings in a clear comparison table. It's also generating some tips that would make somebody else, like an assistant, be very efficient at doing a task like this. And last here, what we are training AI to do as well is for the AI to estimate the amount of effort that a reasonably smart person who doesn't know who you are would take to produce this desired outcome and the set of steps that they would take. And what's interesting here is I'm not doing this presentation merely as a marketing pitch or something like that, but more to explain kind of what's went into building something like this and why it's important. But we do sell this product. And so here we are also communicating kind of in order to delegate a task that takes someone else an hour to do, how much would you have to pay that person? So currently the assistants that we have at Double, for example, they're paid at a pretty high rate because they're very experienced assistants. So we're saying, you know, if you wanted to delegate this, it's going to cost you $50. Now, when you delegate something, whether to like AI or another person, at this point, something that many people think about is like, why wouldn't I do this myself? Maybe some of these instructions are not right, or I don't think this task should take an hour. So we have built other things like this, so you can actually adjust the time you want someone to take on it, and AI will actually reevaluate and rewrite the scope of the task to kind of fit those expectations without compromising the outcome. So these are some of the things that we're playing around with. So you'll see here, we've reduced the brief from an hour to half an hour. So now the outcome is a little bit briefer of an overview, identifying a fewer set of options. And the assistant will do this work and give this to you so that all you have to do is select one and go with the right service without getting all that junk in your inbox or having to call these providers yourself. So this is just one example of a type of task that we believe, at least in the current state, AI can help assistants do for people like us very quickly without replacing the work completely, just because in the current state, AI can't do a lot of these things in most products, like being able to call and utilize human judgment to be able to get a discount with a salesperson on the phone, things like that. So this is just me showing you kind of the front end of the kind of prompts that we've been working with, what it produces, so that it's formatted in a way that is easy for people who have never delegated before, or people who don't work with an assistant or even AI can understand, how do I work with a tool to get the output that I want? So here you go. If you were someone that was using the product like this, you would add in the name. So I would do myself here, and you check out, you pay, and then an assistant will let you know when the work is done. So we have a marketplace side of this model where we have a group of assistants in the US that are completing these tasks. So you don't have to onboard with someone who's supporting you all the time. And in this example, we're just using AI as a layer of service that helps people figure out what it is that they want to delegate to another person, rather than have AI do the work, all of the work for you. So that's kind of our general approach. And of course, we have other services that I may not have time to demo for you here today. That's more about when the assistant gets this work, how does AI work with the assistant to produce the best outcome as fast as possible, with that, while still maintaining that last mile execution to be done by a human. But those are some of the things that we're working on. So I hope, again, this is not like the most high level kind of future forward model of where we want AI, where you are all working on AI to go, but just today, it's an example of something some of us are working on to apply AI to work with humans. So if you have any questions, I would love to know.
There are a few questions. Looks like Zachary's hand went up first, and then Myra next.
Hey, hi, Sol. Thank you so much for that presentation. Really appreciate it. This is a broad question. Answer it however you like, but so many different potential human paired categories that unleash, knowledge gig economy workers paired with AI. I love the business model approach. What is the depth and breadth of categories you're going after? How are you kind of looking at that ontology?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, as you have seen, there are certain categories of tasks that we cannot do today. Like as mentioned, like calendar. So our main roadblock here from a marketing perspective is mostly that we don't have access to users when we have a logged out experience like this. Like we're not going to have default access to your calendar, default access to your inbox, all your credit cards and things like that. So we're still in a very early stage of developing this, where we're only able to take on tasks where initially it doesn't require that much access to your tools and your existing system. So something that we are working on is probably going to benefit from tools and infrastructure that others of you are working on, like Reza, you mentioned earlier, like discussions about like how do we use passkeys to have AI agents and other assistants have like secure kind of access to your tools to be able to execute certain tasks on your behalf, but in a no trust environment, right? So people don't have to share passwords across the internet. It's authenticated always. There's a sort of kind of assumed timeout. So once we kind of figure out those things, and there are partners we're working with that'll help us figure out. We expect it to unlock much more tasks, like some of the ones that I had said we are not able to handle yet. So right now we're kind of stuck in a very small category of research tasks like this, where people can, get quotes for you. We have people delegating things like, hey, I'm, running an AI conference and I need help building a LinkedIn outreach list of like 10,000 profiles of people who meet this criteria. Then people delegate things like this to have an AI and then a human kind of build out these prospecting lists or hiring lists for you. So it's just all in the interest of, cutting down the time you would spend doing a lot of research on the internet.
I think we had Myra next, and I think Mike, you had your hand up. Michael Grossman, you had your hand up as well. Myra?
Yeah, my question was more about the example that we walked through. Once you submit that request, do you get an answer back within 30 minutes, or is there like a follow-up lag time?
Yeah, great question. Right now, it depends on the task. Like this is quite a fast task. So I'm guessing that we will assign this very quickly. Somebody will pick it up. Sometimes tasks that, people delegate tend to be more project-based. And so, an assistant might respond to you and then say, actually, I need like a couple of days to work on this. And then they'll get back to you with the results and you can have your feedback and all of that.
Okay, so there's no like a guarantee of, well, you should have an answer within X amount of time.
We do try to do the first response, like at the acknowledgement that your task has been assigned, and the next time, like when an assistant expects to have the result for you within 24 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, you're next.
A quick question. I'm assuming that none of the work that's being done here is being done on device. So I'm wondering about how if that's in your roadmap, is to achieve a way for these AI tasks, obviously not the tasks that involve a human assistant, be done on device.
Done on device. Would you mind clarifying?
As opposed to in the cloud, as opposed to, I mean, are you thinking about ways for this service to be an application that people download and then aspects of it are done on the device, or is that something you haven't talked about?
It is, and if you're interested, I'll have to let you know when we have that available, but we do not as of yet. So I know we're at time, so I would love to close with, if that's okay, a couple of offers that I have. And so if you have any questions, if obviously, like this is kind of, you're looking at the outside of what we're developing. And I haven't been able to share a lot of like what's under the hood and what's the prompting process that's went into, controlling our outputs, what's the data we use to train this and things like that. So if you are interested in learning from that, or if you're developing things that are similar, I would be happy to share our prompt and some of the resources that we use with you. So please feel free to maybe connect with me on LinkedIn, or if there's a way I can follow up after this meeting, would love to connect with you and share resources. And if you would like to try a service like this for free, whether because you want to play around with the AI we have in here, or actually you have something like Myra, like you actually want someone to help you find a better car insurance options, please reach out to me and I will give you a code so you can actually try it out for free and get a couple hours back in your day this week.
Sol, thanks so much. I'm thinking that later on down the road, as we're building out our personal assistant, it's the personal assistant that would be interfacing with your backend, with your marketplace, and making those requests, saying, hey, I'm the assistant for Myra, and I see that she's overpaying on her insurance, and it would go off and get those quotes and bring them back and then surface them up to her and say, Myra, I spotted, and so I asked some humans and you gave me budget to do that. And I asked a service to come back with quotes. And so to have this sort of agency, having an agent that gives you agency, that amplifies you, that makes you a better you, that's our goal. And but we also don't want to sort of send up all of our private information to the cloud. So I think this is a great combination, because you're basically firewalling Myra from being inundated by the sort of follow-on spam that hits her after she's asked for an insurance quote. There seems to be no mechanism in the internet to say, yes, I've already bought that. Stop sending me offers for this same thing that I bought last month. Okay, so thank you so much, Sol. I'm going to get us back onto the agenda. Lovely having you on, and we're so grateful that you could make it. Okay, so I'm going to get us back onto the agenda. We don't have Debbie here, so it's work group updates next, and it'll be Sam, if you're there, to give us an update on what the PIOS is doing. I know there's been a lot of progress, a lot of meetings this week. Sam, you up for that?
Yeah, I can. Just one sec.
There we go. And I'm gonna.
Okay. So yeah, there's been a lot of work this week around apps and abilities, and what does an app look like, right? So what when Roy and co are building and the Balaji's team are building the assistants and agents and so on, like how do they install it into the OS, right? We've got abilities, which is things like OCR and vector storage, like Chroma and these other kind of components or plugins or modules or packages or whatever you want to call them. But then when I say, okay, I want to make the Sam bot or the Bruce bot or a teaching assistant or something like this, right? You kind of need to instantiate something and have like an environment, and that environment needs to have a directory and a name and things like Python environments, containers, whatever other bits and pieces all kind of bundled up together. And ideally then you start thinking about whether you want like an app store. And so I've created some infrastructure for an app store on the where the different apps that are in the apps repo on GitHub get with GitHub Actions get turned into an apps directory that can then be loaded by the OS and so on. The idea would be that you'd be able to load an app from a repository, any repository, your own repository, which would encourage you or really require you to have versioning and kind of be a grown up about how you do your development instead of just like having a directory that's got an app in it. But there are some complexities here. I can't just kind of say, well, like on Linux, everything's a package and some things are libraries and some things are apps and they all depend on each other and so on, because you might have multiple instances. You know, you might have the teaching assistant, which might have a physics lecturer and a chemistry lecturer and a maths lecturer, and each one kind of has their own space and maybe has their own storage or maybe not, right? If you've got one person has all of their emails in one place, you don't want to have 5 copies of your emails because you've got 5 different apps or agents out booking your holidays and this kind of stuff. So yeah, making good progress there. And then in parallel, we're working on the product management side of things. I've been working with AZ to get access to stuff like the Open API specs on currently on Stoplight, and so we can start to share the load as well.
Fantastic, thanks so much. And I'm looking at the GitHub repo. Is this ready for people to start cloning and or not cloning, but taking and building themselves, or?
Well, look, without the ability to start an app on it, probably not. If you're a developer, then by all means jump in and start having a look at it. And some people have, and that's been great. And some people are even contributing code. You know, we've got Robert who's working on the authentication code, and Brian's looking at the Hugging Face Hub API, so you can pull down models that are right-sized for your hardware directly from the interface. So.
I saw Toby posting saying, you know, the YAML spec was really helpful, and he's going to be building an assistant or his own ability around that YAML spec.
Yeah. So while you're there, Reza, since you've got this on the screen, right? There's the back end has an interface that all of the front ends, and currently the front end is a React, built in React. It's React admin, and it can only talk to the back end through a very well-defined API, and there is an open API spec in there that, and what that means is that if somebody wants to make a mobile interface, an Android interface, or an iOS interface, or managing OS Manager, or they want to put it into a DevOps workflow or something like this, everything is done through that API. So yes, that's probably the most useful documentation there.
Great. Okay.
And when you run it, it actually comes up as API docs, so you get a nice Swagger interface that you can click through and look at what requests and responses look like.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm not sure if Balaji's up for giving us an update.
Yeah, sure, Reza. I'm here.
Excellent, you're here. Okay, great. So let me pin you. There we go. And
All right, great. So on the assistant front, we have made quite a bit of progress there. Robert, who started working on the passkey implementation, we discussed on this week's call, and third-party service like Corbato can be eliminated. I think he has made good progress trying to use WebAuthn. So one of the key requirements, and we face this every time we approach a solution in this, is that either we are used to some paid products like Firebase or this. So I think I tell others it's tough, but it's also interesting, right? We have to start figuring out other open source ways of getting things done. So I'm glad that we found one for the passkey implementation. Kudos to Robert working on that. And on the user interface, we did finalize a few more screens on customizing how a professor would let a student to customize some aspects of the agent or the assistant. And on the last, the API front, Roy was able to come up with specs, and I had a chance to review them. So we know exactly what the user interface or presentation layer needs from the OS layer to pull and present. So quite a bit of progress on that front. So I think I'm glad to see we are moving on all fronts week after week. Thanks.
great, thanks. I'm going to give a quick update of the beta. So we've got now 14 colleges that have requested to be part of the beta. And so, well, gosh, and we haven't even put out the press release yet. So Garth, I'm gonna be leaning on you. I'd like the text of that press release sometime soon. What people are doing is, in fact, the thing that's on the screen at the moment, they're so eager to get the beta. They said, "Hey, we're going to try the POC." So they actually took the POC and started playing with that. And if you go to the PyBeta page, which is the PyBeta channel rather, you will see, and I think maybe I showed this to you already, but you'll see that Cornell Medical School took the POC. This is Q1 code of us, and they were able to first of all show what it looks like. And so they instead of having an avatar, they have just an image here. I don't think it animates, but look at the very specific questions. They loaded it up with all their lab data, the knowledge base of their lab, which is basically the transcripts of their internal meetings, of Zoom meetings. And they now want to actually add Slack to it. So that'll be a great connector, because think of all those conversations that go on in Slack, and you want your AI to be informed by that. So you can ask them a question that there's no way ChatGPT would have been able to respond to. If you just put in the prompt, Illumina maintenance payment, ChatGPT will probably give you an answer. It'll hallucinate some answer. It might, give you a haiku or something like that around that. But our AI, our PIOS, it's not on the OS yet. It's the proof of concept actually just delivered. The Illumina maintenance payment is due in October 30th. And here's the total amount. And here is the citation for where the ground truth was for that answer was drawn from. So this is a great example of how it's being used in an environment today. They're itching to get the full beta, but they were so eager to use it that they started just playing with the POC. So I think this is going to be very exciting, and we've got ideas of how this is going to follow on in subsequent phases. Okay, so now I'm going to ask for a research update. Let's just go from. Let's go to here. A research update. Maybe Brian, you can give us an update on the. Yeah, I think you're up next. So Brian, can you give us an update on what's going on in the sort of distributed inference research that you're doing?
Yes. Okay. So the architecture that we're targeting, which we've talked about before, but I'll repeat for people who are not familiar with it, we have a distributed storage layer, and then on top of that, we have a distributed compute layer with which we can do inference and training. And then on top of that, we would have a layer that would allow for communication with other entities, things that would allow marketplaces and intent casting and those kinds of activities. So in preparation for an initial marketplace experiment, two areas have become very important. The first one is privacy, security, and alignment issues, which we've discussed before, and then distributed performance for common tasks. So we're currently researching performance of some of these tasks, such as distributed RAG, researching techniques and measuring performance. The privacy, security, and alignment issues are more complicated. The community fabric initially will be quite usable for general queries, including those using community or domain-specific documents, but anything requiring personal or private information is going to require additional work. So standard things like identity and access management, but especially things like trust networks. We've been doing a lot of discussion lately on trust networks and data provenance. For private information, trust networks are going to be some of the most important, and job control, where perhaps you could split up a job and only run it on nodes operated by people you trust. Additionally, doing security of the jobs themselves, breaking up tensors and models across nodes, using techniques like sparse mixture of experts. We can put custom compute into LoRa adapters that are done on the local machine so that they never leave your machine. We can use substitute tokens for personally identifiable information. We can do pseudonymization of requests. And then there are different architectures for data flow that can be used. So there's a lot of research right now into how to keep the data secure as it's moving through the network.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brian. And so for the time being, when we the near-term goals is to look at a sharded RAG and only focus on public data for now. So these large databases like the thing that Diego is working on, a massive medical database of drug leaflets. Imagine that sharded across multiple nodes, and now your query, your RAG query, executes much faster, albeit on distributed nodes. So it's doing that as a short term and using public data for now, and punting the security issue for the time being, I think is a good strategy. So thanks so much. Let's get to maybe Ryan, if you're online, you've been doing the research, and I don't know if everyone knows, so maybe give people a sort of a high level of what you're doing and then what the progress is at the moment.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Reza. Yeah, and some of it definitely overlaps with Brian as well, and some of the other teams. But yeah, hey everyone, I'm Ryan. I run the Alignment and AI Safety Lab with Mudit, where the goal is to contribute to the overall body of research for aligning AI with human values. So an example organization that does this today is Anthropic. So some quick updates for our lab is we have another reinforcement learning developer joining implementation in early July. So we'll get them up to speed and they'll be helping out there. And then, so outside of implementation, we also do alignment research. So on that side, we're starting to have more raw discussions on experiments and experiment planning for next year, particularly with Brian and Steve during our Saturday meetings. So we have meetings on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and overall steering towards the main goal of this year, which is to produce a position paper. And yeah, we're making steady progress. towards that. But overall, we need to keep pushing paper summaries for the position paper. And also at the tail end of the year, we're looking to sort of spec out or write a survey paper if possible, if not early next year. And yeah, as I mentioned, we have our weekly updates on Tuesdays. If anybody would like to join in, the work group for that is WG Alignment. And yeah, that's our update.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. I wonder if Shad is around to give us an update on Graph Rag, and I'm not sure if Shad is.
Yeah, I've been working on the Graph Rag, specifically this putting Reza's father's book, District 6, in there. And Reza, do you have that diagram? I don't have that diagram. Yeah. This is a top 500 or limit 500 of just all of the nodes in relationships. So each one of the dots there is a node. It's an entity. It's like a person, place, or thing. And then each one of the lines between them is a relationship. You can also attach properties to the nodes and relationships. So this can get really complex. The book has got like something like 100,000 of these relationships. So it's quite a bit more complex than this. This is just a small subset. But we can use this and we can ask questions over it. So right now, this question is just the simplest Cypher query you can do of return me all the nodes and relationships. But you can start getting more specific about which types of nodes, which types of relationships. You can also kind of extend it on. So you don't have to have just 2 nodes connected by 1 relationship. You could actually have 3 nodes that are connected by 2 relationships. So you kind of get a chain. And then you can kind of like, friend of a friend. And, so if you're like, looking at LinkedIn and it's like, this is your first connection, your second connection, your third connection, and being able to ask questions over that kind of a thing. So this is another, been also, working with Diego, doing a very similar thing with his drug side effects. And so there's a lot of applications of this kind of thing.
This research is not to be understated, because currently RAG takes all of these dots and just has them as a single table of vectors. And when your RAG query at the moment is to scan through all of those dots and find the best maybe half a dozen matches by doing a cosine similarity score, and then those half a dozen get sent back to the prompt before the prompt, and basically the LLM says, okay, is asked to create the answer out of those half a dozen chunks. That means that you can't ask questions that are not where the answer is not explicitly expressed in a chunk. If the question is about a high level relationship or some higher level insight, then you need this sort of graph representation. You need this graph database representation of your data. So this is super important, and thank you so much, Shad, for leading the way in this research. Nicole's got her hand up. Nicole, you're muted. There you go.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to know real quick, is this a 2D map, or do we have a 3D representation as well?
So this is a 2D map of that. These nodes and relationships don't really have a 3D structure, but I could think of, for example, like molecules. You might have a 3D structure. So you, for example, one of the things, if you put the atoms in there as the nodes, you could attach a property which might have the position. So if you had done like some X-ray crystallography or something like that, you had the positions of the atoms, within the element. You could certainly encode that type of information, structural type information into here.
Oh, that's fascinating. I was wondering because in the realm of like data assessment, if we were able to map those in a 3D space and give it more of like a globe where it could be learned and viewed from different perspectives, the associations might be easier to connect between. I don't know that would replicate differing perspectives from a human kind of standpoint, but I have a theory that making that a 3D interactive map for the AI agents to interact with might make it easier for them to form valuable associations.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting idea. So we'll have to like look for a 3D viewer kind of thing. But yeah, I'll exchange some PMs with you and we can discuss that further.
I would love that. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. AZ, your hand was next.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks to Nicole's question, I was encouraged to ask Shad. I see relationships having certain attributes that are shown in dots and dashes. Is that overloaded? Like, is there richness of information that's not conveyed in the lines that can be conveyed with these dots and dashes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The line is just indicating that there's a relationship there, but the properties which can be associated with that are limitless. So you can attach as many properties as you want. They can be numbers, they can be strings. You could put a JSON string or an XML string which is attached to that. You could certainly put a reference like a key. So if you had like a SQL database table someplace or some other kind of database, you could say, here's the key, go look up all this other information, which is,
gotcha.
In this. So yeah, it's kind of sky's the limit sort of thing.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, so we've gone a bit long, haven't we? So we've got a few minutes for member voices. Thanks so much, Shad, for that. I think this is important work. But let's get some member voices and look, if you're new to Kwaai, this is your opportunity to say hi. Nicole, have we seen you before? We haven't heard from you before. Come on.
No, I'm new. Hello, it's lovely to be here. I have a big interest in what you guys are working on, and previous to finding this space, I was just kind of an independent researcher doing a lot of work on my own. So it's really awesome to be here, and I'm excited to be surrounded by professionals and experts. It's super fun to sit in on you guys' meetings. So thank you so much. This has been great.
Fantastic. You're making me want to cry. Okay.
No, don't cry.
So look, if there aren't any more new voices, you're all preaching to the choir. Oh, hold on, Drea. Hey, let's unmute and tell us about yourself. What brings you to Kwaai? There's a microphone. You have to hover down the bottom. There we go.
So I was invited by Brian.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm Drea. So my own background with AI is I'm actually a graphic designer, UX designer, and web developer. I also have background in quality assurance and documentation. And sort of what has brought me into UI is I've just kind of gotten sucked down this whole pipeline, starting with generative art and then with, like LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, etc. And then also like Llama and the various things offered by Kobold AI. And sort of I've just kind of gotten sucked down a rabbit hole with AI, wanting to know everything I can about it and wanting to find ways to be involved.
Great. Okay. So thanks so much, Andrea. We could use your help. Documentation and so on. We could absolutely use your help, and it will make people make the code more accessible to a larger number of folks. I'm gonna call on Doc to maybe speak us out. Sorry to hit you up, Doc, and I don't know if you're.
Well, that's what I get for turning myself back on again. There, I had my visuals off. Oh, it's great just to see so many people here and participating in this again. And I'm interested in hearing from other people about. I mean, my contention is that Kwaai is the only one in this space. I mean, it's a space that's cluttered with lots and lots and lots of startups and lots of AI tools, but none that are doing open source the way we're doing it and personal the way we're doing it. And it's a high calling. It's also kind of a wide calling, I suppose. So it's just great to have everybody so interested in it and to see our number of volunteers go over 500. And there's a hand. Christian has raised a hand there.
Christian.
Hi to all. I would like to give to all the members an announcement that, as you know, next week we will be attend an important science festival here in Sicily at Syracuse. If I can share my screen, I would like to share the festival poster where Kwaai is involved.
I will. You are now a co-host. You should have screen
Okay,
share.
now, yes, it's okay. Let me share it.
So if anyone doesn't know, Christian is the director of the EMEA chapter of Kwaai.
Okay. Okay, this is the poster that I mentioned just before. And as you can see, the Kwaai logo is inside because we are protagonists of these events. And especially, we will have a particular space where we will divulgate our community ideas, and also we will have a guest, Reza from remote, that will introduce briefly our activity. So this is another starting point from the EMEA chapter in order to spread the message over the EMEA region. I am very proud to share this with all the community, and I hope that our community will be as much bigger and stronger in the future. So thank you very much. It's just the beginning, I say always.
Can
Thanks so much.
you share that?
Yes, of course. I will post it in our Slack channel. Okay. And you can spread and share everywhere. But also there is a program that we can share. But I'm sorry that all is written in Italian. It's not in English. I'm sorry, but the event is in Italy and in Italian. But you can try to understand briefly what is the meaning.
Okay. Post it in the EMEA chapter channel so everyone can see it. Thanks very much. And somebody said they're going to be in Italy next week, so maybe they want to attend. Oh, Damien, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, I did. I also didn't see the dates, so if you could just tell us the exact dates.
For our space is 5 and 6 July.
You see that?
We will start at 6 p.m. Rome time.
Okay.
Appreciate it. I'll ping you offline, Christian.
Okay. Any more voices? We're already over time. Can someone post the? I will do that. I'll post. There's a little after party. Going to start straight after this. It's basically the follow-on conversation that we have. I'm going to post that link. Where is it? There we go. So I mean, it's always the same. The same meeting coordinates, but that's where we're going straight after this meeting. So thank you very much. Gosh, we're over 500, and the 48th meeting. We're coming up to the anniversary of Kwaai. Next week is the week of 4th of July. So let's have a quick vote. Do we skip next week's meeting, or so that'll be on the 5th of July, and let everyone just have a long break? Or let's just have a quick straw poll, hands up, who wants to meet next week, or what? Yeah, so it's hands up if you want to meet. Otherwise, I think we're going to skip next week.
I can attend because of the events.
That's right. Okay. Gosh, Nicole and Myra and Andrea want to meet. Okay, look, I'm gonna. Let's expect a smaller meeting. Looks like the lots of hands are going up. Okay, we will have a meeting next week, and look forward to seeing you there. And if it's a shortened meeting, that's also fine. It's great to just see you all. Okay, I'm hopping on to the next call. Thanks so much. Keep well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, can you tell me how to get to the after party? Because I'm lost. Is there a special link?
There was a link like a minute ago, but I accidentally closed out and now I've lost it.
Me too. I tried to add people on LinkedIn.
If you're in the chat, Nicole, if you scroll back up just a little bit, says Kwaai Weekly Idea Exchange.
Okay, do I just clip the video call link out of that? Is that where everybody went?
Link there. Yeah, that's where everybody went.
I can't.
Okay.
So,
how do I grab that?
I think you should.
It's not hyperlink anymore. Yeah, that's the problem we're having. It's just text now. We can't touch it.
Let's see. Without typing in those characters.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm old enough to do this. I can type it in manually. I'm not above that.
I don't even have the link here in the chat.
I mean, I can. It's
If I type it out in the
What-
chat, does it become a hyperlink again? Can I just be the hero we all deserve right now?
I'm gonna try and do that myself. Let's see if that works.
Mr. Rassool better be proud of us for our dedication. I'm just saying. Fashionably late.
Did that work for you guys? I just re-pasted it into the chat.
Yeah.
There it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, you're a hero. Okay, I'll see you guys at the party.
Never soon. Bye.
Okay.
You got it, girl. You coming in? If I don't see you, I'll send one back.